And welcome back to the vlog. So last night, Sitka had their grand opening event for their Sitka Depot. It's like their retail store in Bozeman. Really fun event, live music, lots of people speaking, free food, entertainment, all the things. And part of the entertainment was myself and a handful of others did like these 15-minute presentations. Mine was on photography. And in today's vlog, I'm going to do a kind of a paraphrased version of that presentation. So let's jump into it. So I've been shooting photos for Sitka for about 10 years now, and one analogy that I use to kind of represent my shooting style is, well, one, it's all about the experience, but where that came from is in 2011, I drew a bull elk tag here in my home state of Montana, and I spent 45 days hunting before I finally harvested or killed an elk. So the kill or the harvest was 1/45 of my total experience of that hunt. The rest of it was just all these wild, crazy, cool adventures, the camaraderie shared with friends and family that went on the hunt, these cool experiences I had by myself, these just interactions with animals, enduring gnarly weather, etc. There was so much that was jammed into that hunt that when I think back on that, you know, obviously I look at the elk on the wall, but I think back to all those cool memories that led up to that moment. So for me, when I'm out photographing hunts, it's all about the experience. It's all about trying to capture everything that leads up to hopefully harvesting an animal. Obviously, we're there to harvest an animal. That is the end goal. That's what gets us to the hills, but there's just so many things that happen along that route, and that is what I focus my photography on. So I'm just going to run through a handful of things that I like to focus on photographing or even videoing. And these don't have to be shot with a super fancy camera. I do a lot of this stuff with my iPhone. So whether you're out with an iPhone or a fancy camera, whether you're choosing to share it online and just with friends and family, or you're shooting for brands, like these are definitely things to think about when you're out there shooting. So let's dive in. So the first photo theme that I love to focus on is emotion. Every photographer, when they post a photo or when they shoot a photo, they want their viewers to connect with their images. They want them to look at their images and feel something. And when you shoot with emotion in mind, that's going to help out a ton. So a couple ways I do that. Let's just use some photo examples. I love shooting pictures of people's faces during those emotional times. So this is Carson Wentz. This is right after he took his archery tar in New Zealand. And he's just stoked. He's super happy. You can see it in his face. Obviously, if I was shooting behind him, I would not be able to see what he's doing with his face, and I would just see a guy with his hands on his head. So shooting people's faces during those emotional times is a great one to connect with your viewers. So this next photo, this is Dustin Rowe. He is a sheep guide. This one's up in Alberta. He just got out of his tent in the morning, snowed about an inch overnight, and he's doing the first stretch. I think everybody, when they first get out of bed, they do one big stretch. So again, just kind of looking for these emotional elements that people can connect with is definitely important. This next photo, this is my friend Serenity, and we're on an Alberta sheep hunt. It's probably 15 degrees Fahrenheit. The wind's ripping, and she's eating a honey stinger waffle, and anyone who's ever had a honey stinger knows that when they get cold, they get really hard and they're hard to bite. So you can see her, she's gritting, trying to bite this thing. The wind's ripping. You can see her face. You can see all those emotions in her face. I love this photo. Another example, this is New Zealand. We flew a helicopter up looking for chamois. The mountains behind, that's Mount Cook in the background. And the three guys on the right, they're looking away, and then Jessie Young, she's the one on the left. Originally she was looking away, and then she knew I was taking photos, and so she spun around and put her arm up and gave me the shaka, and she's got a stoked look on her face. And I've got an image from before this where they're all looking away, and it's cool. But then as soon as she spun around and you can see her face, gave me the shaka, she just looks super stoked. It just adds so much more emotion to this image. Next couple photos here. This is up on a British Columbia mountain goat hunt. This goat came up. We finally got in range of one. After 8 days of hunting, I'm sitting there. I actually was filming this goat, and my friend Connor was at full draw on this thing, and the goat's 35 yards away. So very doable shot, and Connor's at full draw, and I'm just waiting for an arrow to fly. It never does. 10 seconds goes by, never does. 15 seconds goes by. Never does. And I look to my left to see what the heck Connor was doing, and he's slamming his trigger. But what had happened is it was so cold that the firing mechanism in his archery release actually froze. So eventually the goat figured out we were there and ran off. Connor was so disappointed. Just like after 8 days of enduring some really gnarly weather and conditions, we finally have an opportunity, and comes down to 35 yards and then has a mechanical failure with his bow. So this photo is him he just laid in the snow for probably 5 minutes with his eyes closed, just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened. So again, focusing on those emotional elements. All right, the next photo theme that I like to focus on is weather. Weather just brings out everything within the image. So this first photo, there's just two guys on horseback. Imagine if there wasn't any snow in this photo. It would literally just be two guys on horseback riding through the willows. They probably wouldn't stand out very well. It's just two guys on horseback, which is cool, but as soon as you add snow to the mix, the two guys and the horses, they really contrast against the white, so they stand out. You can see snow falling. It looks cold, it looks miserable in the best of ways. The horses, like, if you look closely, their butts are like wet, and the guy in the front's got his hood on. So like weather just makes everything that much more interesting. All right, next photo, it's Alberta sheep hunt. Super gnarly weather. Again, if there wasn't any weather, it would just be two guys standing on this bluff, which would be a cool photo, but you add the weather to it and it just totally makes this image. Next example, this is up near Sitka, Alaska. We're on a little skiff going back to our main boat while hunting brown bears, and just dumping rain. This is kind of a cool shot. I was shooting into the light from our main boat, and I had water droplets hitting my lens, which is what kind of creates these little circular kind of lit up figures within the photo, and then you've got the guy silhouetted. But again, weather just adds so much emotion. It just really puts you there, and it's like, holy cow, that looks gnarly. Next example is my friend Kiviak and Dustin Rowe. They're packing out at Archery Ram in Alberta. It's snowy. You can kind of see their faces. They're bent over their poles. They look tired and exhausted. For me, I love shooting in bad weather. When you can add bad weather, epic terrain, cool people doing something wild in a unique place, like that is the holy grail for me in trying to capture some wild imagery. And then this photo, this is my Sony A7R III. I shot a time lapse overnight up on a winter goat hunt and went out to my camera the next morning. This is what my camera looked like, but pretty wild. I still shoot with this camera. It survived the night just fine. All right, the next photo theme, I call this just like in the moment action type stuff, or even behind the scenes, just some cool things that happen on the hunt that you end up filming or videoing with your phone. And in this example, this is a personal elk hunt I went on. I called in this elk and I decided pretty quick, I was like, okay, he's not what I want to, I don't want to take a shot. So instead I just pulled my phone out and I recorded him coming in. I actually whistle bugled him in. So here's a video clip of that. The great thing about any of these photo tips or any of these photo themes that I'm running through is you really can capture them all with your iPhone or smartphone. You don't need a fancy camera, and if you are hunting by yourself a lot, I mean, it's hard to, it's a total pain, and kind of your camera ends up being in the way if you have a bigger camera. So having a smartphone that's just in your pocket, that's instantly accessible, it's really hard to go wrong with that route. Next photo theme is the places hunting takes us, or like the locations. So this first photo example, this is in Azerbaijan. We're going through a herd of sheep and goats, and we're going up to a military checkpoint. And up at this military checkpoint, I had to put my camera down because there was a bunch of they had to have been 12 to 14-year-old kids holding these like semi-automatic rifles, and they're in the military, and they were yelling at me to put my camera down. They didn't want to be photographed. Thought I was going to get shot, so I put my camera down, but wild moment there. The second photo, this is also in Azerbaijan in the Caucasus Mountains. The scale of these mountains is just massive. Up on top of the mountain, we're basically at 14,000 feet, and the very top was the Russian border. So pretty cool the places that hunting takes us. This photo is in Mongolia. These two local shepherds, they just joined us on the hunt, and the one guy's got him on the left has got a binocular, and then the guy on the right, he had some binoculars, and he cut them in half. So now he has two binoculars, and he can give one to a friend. And there was a handful of other guys. Nobody had binoculars. They all cut their binos in half, and then gave one half to a friend. And the places hunting takes us is pretty wild. I've been pretty fortunate to travel pretty much all over the world documenting different hunts. And in the end, like, hunting is hunting. Most hunts, you spot, you stalk, and then you probably spook. And then you repeat, and then you repeat, and then you repeat, then maybe you get one. But the concept of hunting doesn't really change, but the places that you go and the cultures that you experience, that does change quite drastically. This is Brad Christian up on Kodiak Island, just showing the magnitude and how steep Kodiak Island is. This is out on the Alaska Peninsula in a little fishing village. We're out here hunting brown bears. This one's on a winter goat hunt in February up in northern British Columbia. I mean, we're like above timberline, up where, there's heli-ski guide operations all over this country. And it was just such a unique thing for us to be up here hunting mountain goats in the middle of winter in like 8 feet of snow. I never would have expected that I would be hunting up at some elevations like this. And the next photo theme is the wildlife or the animals that we pursue. This first photo, this is one of the more unique things I've ever experienced. This really rutted up bull moose came walking right between the guide, Warren. He's in front on a horse. And then the hunter, Kiviak, he's in back. The moose walks right between them. And this is a great example of always having your camera ready, because I was leading two horses, and my horse did not like my camera. Every time it heard the shutter, it would kind of start bucking around a little bit. But I had it on me. I was just like, I gotta keep it on me in case something wild happens. And sure enough, this happened. Connor Gabbett on an archery stone sheep hunt up in British Columbia. He's down in the rocks here on the left, and then got a ram up here probably 80 yards away. This would be another kind of holy grail shot of hunting where you can get a hunter and animal in the same frame. Shed hunters will love this photo. This is an elk shed with a bull right behind, and hard to say for certain, but judging by the location of where this bull is and the similarities between his headgear and the shed, it very much could be that bull's previous year's shed. So this photo, my friend Connor and I were actually washing our clothes in a creek, and I catch movement out of my eye to my left, and I look left, and here comes this wolf pup. When at first it runs up to like 10 yards, I thought it was a German Shepherd, and I was like, wait a minute, we're like 150 miles from anybody. It can't be a German Shepherd. So it took me a couple seconds to realize it was a wolf, and fortunately I had my 7200 attached to a camera right next to me, and I kind of leaned over and took a few of these photos. And yeah, that was just one of the wilder things ever. We're up there on a sheep hunt and just hanging out by a creek, and all of a sudden this wolf pup just comes running right up out of nowhere. He eventually smelled us and runs off, and then we heard some like yipping and kind of howling all around us, and this whole pack ended up, they were just going up the creek bottom we were in, and they actually passed right by us. So really, really cool experience. This is a mountain lion in a tree. As you can see, she was staring down at me. It was like looking into pure evil. It was really cool. I love doing detail shots of the animals we harvest as well. This is just a tight macro shot of some snow that had fallen on elk hair. Every photographer, we've got kind of our one really unique thing we love to photograph. For me, it's taking pictures of the animal's eyes. I think they're beautiful. It's very contrasty. Pretty much every critter I've ever hunted myself or been along with, I always shoot these real tight kind of detail shots of their eyes. And another kind of thing I love to do is shoot photos of that first look. So when you take an animal, it's that first view. When you walk up to it, you're like, uninterrupted by humans, just kind of like an as it lay image. The next photo theme is food, and documenting food is really important. And what I mean by food is documenting like that we harvest the meat, that we take the meat, that we utilize the meat in so many amazing ways. I'm always shocked how many people don't realize that as hunters, we also take the meat. They think we just chop the heads off and go on our way, and that's very much not the case. We take the meat and we celebrate the food, and that's something that's very much worthwhile photographing. So this first photo, this is Carson Wentz in New Zealand with his tar. He's super stoked. He's holding up 2 back straps right there, and he's just really excited about this wild game that he's about to eat. This shot is of black-tailed deer heart on Haida Gwaii, cooking over a little grate on a fire with rosemary skewers. And we shot this deer probably 20 hours prior, and we packed it down to the beach and cooked it on the beach, and it was an amazing meal. This is Dustin Rowe in 2019, Northwest Territories. He shot an archery Dall sheep, and we packed out the whole rib cage and we cooked ribs over the fire, and this was the final product. All right, the last photo theme I'll talk about today is comic relief. When you're on a hunt, at least when I'm on a hunt and when I'm with friends, 95% of the time we're out there goofing off. We're just having a great time. We're sharing this really cool experience in the mountains with buddies, and so 95% of the time you're goofing off, and then the remaining 5% of the time, that's when you get really serious and you're in hunt mode. So I love to shoot these kind of comic relief, just fun, memorable photos. Usually at the end of every hunt, I line up the guys and take a group shot. We usually do one serious shot, and then after that, I'm like, all right, guys, everybody make a funny face. So this is a funny face photo with Dustin, Dan, Connor, myself up on British Columbia mountain goat hunt in February. All the images from all these hunts, especially this one, they're really cool. But in 20 years from now, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna be looking at these really hilarious photos, and they will forever put a smile on my face. And yeah, I love shooting these, and I love looking back on them. This one is of Dustin up in Alberta on a sheep hunt, just standing on a rock doing a ninja pose. This is Cash. He's a pilot and hunter up in British Columbia. We're actually in the Northwest Territories here, and he's just pushing his face up against the screening or the netting of his tent, just like you would against the window of a door. Just hilarious. All right, well, that's a wrap on this vlog. Just wanted to run through a handful of photo themes that I focus on when I'm out in the mountains, documenting either someone else's hunt or my own. Doesn't matter what camera you have, you can shoot any of this stuff through photos or videos with either, the fancy mirrorless cameras or even your iPhone. Hope you learned something. Hope you gain a little insight into how I shoot photos and why I shoot what I shoot. And yeah, that's a wrap. So we'll see you next time. Thank you.